Good afternoon from the KUOW newsroom. This is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Thursday, November 20th. Who will help Mayor-elect Katie Wilson prepare for office? We're learning this week Wilson's appointing a team of longtime local community and government leaders to guide her transition. KNKX Murrow News fellow Nate Sanford has more.
Wilson's lack of experience in elected office was a big focus on the campaign trail. But the transition team she's assembling has deep roots in Seattle politics. The team will be led by Andres Mantilla, a local political consultant who previously did policy work with former Seattle mayors Jenny Durkin and Greg Nichols. The transition co-chairs are also familiar faces in City Hall. Karen Estevanin is head of the largest union for city employees, and Brian Surratt previously led Seattle's Office of Economic Development under former Mayor Ed Murray. Other team members bring community experience. Quinn Pham is the executive director of Friends of Little Saigon, and Tiffany McCoy is the director of the nonprofit House Our Neighbors, which advocates for social housing. The team is tasked with gathering feedback and identifying priorities for Wilson's term as mayor. Nate Sanford, reporting.
An oil emergency is ongoing in Washington state. The Olympic Pipeline, which is the primary oil pipeline in the Northwest, is shut down. Governor Bob Ferguson has declared an emergency for the state, saying SeaTac Airport could run low on jet fuel by Saturday. Energy giant BP shut down the Olympic Pipeline last week for a few days, then again on Monday after discovering multiple fuel spills near Everett. The emergency declaration allows fuel truck drivers to work longer hours than safety requirements usually allow. Airport officials say flights are unaffected for now, but BP says there is no timeline for restarting the pipeline. The Seattle City Council's Budget Committee has signed off on the city's budget plan for next year. That sends it to a full council vote tomorrow afternoon. Derek Wong has more.
A statement from the City Council says the proposal includes new record-high investments for affordable housing, nearly $350 million. That's more than 5 times the amount that the city invested in 2019. It also includes almost $10 million for rental assistance. As for homelessness, the budget calls for directing almost $11 million to maintain investments in shelters. It also pauses shelter expansion. The City Council says the city will work with county and state partners to address federal cuts to homelessness programs. The proposal also directs $3 million for a new neighborhood safety program that's aimed at the Little Saigon and Lake City neighborhoods. Derek Wong, KUOW News.
In tsunami news, the Trump administration has canceled funding for earthquake detection stations in western Alaska as part of cuts to NOAA. Washington state officials say the missing data could hurt the speed and accuracy of tsunami warnings here in Washington. Maximilian Dixon oversees tsunami and earthquake preparedness for Washington state. He says it takes 3 to 4 hours for a tsunami to travel from Alaska to the Washington coast.
3.5 hours is not a lot of time to be able to figure out what that tsunami risk is, get all of the alerts out, and get people to safety.
Senator Maria Cantwell is calling for the Trump administration to restore funding for earthquake detection in western Alaska. A firearms ruling came out today. A Thurston County Superior Court judge has upheld Washington's ban on assault-style weapons. The law's been on the books since 2023 and bans anyone from selling, manufacturing, or distributing military-style assault weapons. A firearms dealer in Moses Lake tried to get the law overturned. Three more tidbits tonight. The new superintendent for Seattle Public Schools will start the job in February. The school board has approved Ben Schuldener's contract, which includes a $425,000 salary package. A change is underway at SIF. Executive Director Tom Mara of the Seattle International Film Festival has stepped down, effective immediately. The Seattle Times reports Mara and the board of directors mutually agreed to not renew his contract. Mara joined SIF in 2022 and led the nonprofit as it took over Cinerama, which is now SIF Cinema Downtown, and closed the SIF Cinema Egyptian. And the University of Washington Huskies are Sweet 16 bound. UW's women's soccer team took out Arkansas in a sudden death match this afternoon in the NCAA playoffs. ESPN commentators are saying Washington's team is the best story in sports right now, as quoted in the Seattle Times write-up on today's win. UW's goalkeeper, Mia Hammond, died this month in a mid-season battle with kidney cancer. The team's had to face the crushing loss of that at the same time it advances to its most critical games in years. UW will either play the number 1 seed or the number 8 seed on Sunday. Now, our feature story today. Congress is back at work after the longest U.S. federal government shutdown ever. A shutdown triggered when Senate Democrats refused to approve a spending plan amid a standoff over expiring health care subsidies. Washington Democratic Senator Patty Murray talked about what happened and what comes next with KUOW's Kim Malcolm.
So a handful of Democratic senators joined with majority Republicans to vote to reopen the government. They said the nationwide flight restrictions and the suspension of food benefits were just doing too much harm. You disagreed and voted against that move. Why?
We saw coming this time that we are now in, where people who are on the ACA and get tax credits were going to see their bills for health insurance starting in January double, triple, and even in some cases quadruple. And we have been pushing since early this year to get the Republicans to extend those tax credits so this disaster wouldn't hit millions of Americans. And time again, Republicans said no. So when we came to this turning point, we said, we want a vote on extending the tax credits. This is a dire situation for millions of Americans. I've talked to many myself. I have heard the fear in their voices. I saw this coming, and we said, we will vote on the CR, but we want to make sure that we extend the tax credits. Republicans wouldn't even talk to us. They didn't invite us in the room. They didn't discuss it. They passed a partisan CR with no language in it whatsoever, and Democrats said to Republicans, we are not going to give you the Democratic votes you need to pass this without this discussion. And it is very clear to all of us now, we are in the middle of November. People have been signing up for this for the last several weeks. They are seeing their bills, and the Republicans refuse to acknowledge this healthcare crisis that's coming at us. So, yeah, deeply disappointed, mostly in Republicans, for not listening to their own constituents about what's going to hit so many families that they represent in January.
Just a question about those Affordable Care Act subsidies. There are critics of them who say that, too much of them go towards health insurance administration and not care for individuals. What do you say to those critics? And are there alternatives that should be considered?
Well, look, what they're trying to do is blur the lines about health insurance companies themselves and the tax credits that people pay. Well, that's no different than anybody who pays for health insurance. We can go down that road and say, let's look at health insurance. But the fact is that these tax credits for individuals help them make sure that they kept their family on health insurance. I'll give you a great example. I talked to this woman who was paying $800 a month this year for health insurance for her and her family of 4. As of January, she's going to be paying over $2,300 a month. And what she said to me is, I can't do that. I have a daughter who's sick. I have a family members who struggle. Only thing I can do is drop my health insurance. I cannot afford it, and I'm going to do everything I can to get as much health care in the next 6 weeks as I can, but I can't keep doing this. That is who we're trying to help. Blurring the lines about the bigger problem of health insurance is not going to solve any problem for that woman who's facing losing her health care and her ability to take care of her family beginning January.
On the SNAP benefits, they are restored for now, but millions more Americans are going to face losing them next year because of expanded work requirements in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. What are you doing to address that?
This is so important. In the One Big Beautiful, quote, bill that they passed this summer in order to provide tax breaks for billionaires. The way they paid for it was by making dramatic cuts in Medicaid and other healthcare programs and in SNAP. And what we're going to see is a lot of people over the next several years, as this gets phased in, lose their benefits to SNAP. Now, coincidentally, when the government shut down, the president decided, he had the money, but he decided he was going to cut off SNAP benefits to families across this country. He refused to use the money he had to pay for that. And we saw that up front and personal for the last several weeks, where the long lines at our food banks, families who were desperate. So you asked me what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to fight every single way I can to make sure that we restore those benefits, that we don't face this big cliff in a couple years and see what we all saw dramatically over the last month.
So the continuing resolution that Congress passed and President Trump signed, it only lasts until January 30th to fund the government. And then Congress is going to be in the same boat as before. So what are you focused on as that new deadline for compromise comes closer?
The most important thing I believe we should do is actually pass our regular appropriation bills and not be funded by a CR. That sounds nerdy, but what it means is Congress will decide where that funding is and what levels, and have in law, signed by the president, where that funding goes, rather than operating on a partisan continuing resolution that allows the president to decide where our money is going to go. So I am focused as hard as I can on trying to pass bills to a higher level between now and January 30th, funding parts of our government what we can, saying how this president needs to spend the tax dollars all of us pay. Giving that away to any president, is not what they were elected to do.
U.S. Senator Patty Murray speaking with KUOW's Kim Malcolm. Next time on Seattle Now, it's Casual Friday. Are you the type of person to pick a friend up from the airport even during holiday travel chaos?
I will always pick up my fiance from the airport.
I mean, you would hope.
That's the obvious one.
I think that's what us in the woman community call the bare minimum.
We'll talk Thanksgiving travel and much more tomorrow morning. That's all for today from the KUOW Newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst. The interview in today's episode was produced by John O'Brien. And I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See ya.